Welcome to Trenchometry. If you've spent any time in or around the trenches, playing offensive line isn't just blocking, it is chess at light speed. You're controlling angles while a 280-pound defender tries to destroy your running back. Every snap, calculating leverage, mirroring footwork, and anchoring against pure violence. Miss one step and your franchise player gets flattened. We are here to discuss the most undervalued aspect of the game of football, the offensive line. Remember, when you master the trenches, you win the war. My guest today has just finished his 30th year coaching. He started his playing career on the East Coast at the perennial state contender St. Thomas Aquinas. He was a standout offensive lineman for the Raiders, earning All-American and All-State honors as a senior. He would go on to Rice, looking to become a doctor while earning Southwestern Conference recognition on the all-freshman team. Coaching changes forced a transfer to UGA, where he would play out his time earning a number of different surgeries for his effort. He started his career as an accountant at the Walt Disney World Corporation. He missed the field and would start his coaching career at Iona College and serve a quick internship with the Buffalo Bills. He would move to North Carolina and enter the high school coaching ranks in Fayetteville, North Carolina, before taking his first head coaching job at Currituck County High in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. After rebuilding that school from an 0-10 season to the state playoffs, he would return to his home state of Florida and begin a rebuilding effort at Estero High School. This was no small undertaking, if I might add my own little editorial there. Next on his stop was 2 seasons in the stomping grounds of Hall of Fame Edgerrin James with the Immokalee Indians. Once again, feeling the call to go do the impossible, he would move to Bonita Springs High School to start the football program there. Currently in Collier County at Golden Gate High School, I'd like to welcome Coach Rich Dombroski to Trenchometry today. Coach, welcome.
Welcome. Hey, thank you for having me.
This is I got to tell you first off, the run in between us and I think it was 2008 while you were at Estero High School, one of the most gracious things that you ever said, and I'll never forget it my entire life, after an absolutely awful evening on the field. And it was awful both ways, for you on the bad end and me on the other end. The first thing you said, we came across the field to shake hands. I don't know if you remember this or not. First thing I said is, Coach, I'm sorry. We were not trying to run up the score. And you said, I'll never forget this. You looked me straight in the eye, you smiled, and you said, Coach, we have a responsibility to tackle your guys. And so it was such a gracious line in a situation that was not a fun time to be in. And most people would not see it that way if they would see the score and know what happened. But I'll never forget that. And I'm very grateful for you kind of taking some of the heat off. And that was a very nice thing for you to say. But I've always looked and had a very high opinion of you ever since that night. Just wanted to tell you thank you publicly and personally from that. It was not, again, it was not a fun time, but you made it something that was not as bad as it could have been, for sure.
I appreciate that.
So I got to tell you, man, you've taken some of just from what I've seen, you're a miracle worker. What's kind of the secret to your success there? Because you took over. That was a terrible Estero program. They were in bad shape, man. They were a sinking ship. I don't know how far they were away from having that program kind of shut down when you took it over, and you got them to the playoffs. In a short, 2 years, 3 years, you were in the playoffs?
Right. It's all about buy-in. It's about establishing a culture. And it's a physical game. And we can talk till forever about how games are won and lost up front. And when you go into a program, I did it at Currituck County, and then you take over an Estero program, you have to get the kids to buy into, hey, listen, this is how things have to be done, what the previous coaches did, but you've got to go in there and make changes. You've got to go in there and just, this is what we're going to do. We're going to live or die in this. And if you buy in, great things are going to happen. When I took over the Currituck County program, they were a wishbone team for like 3 decades. That's all they ran in the Outer Banks. They ran power right, power left, all that wishbone stuff. Well, I went in and I looked at what they had been doing. They'd won like 2 games in the last 5 years. And I said, listen, we need to make a change. You guys want to stay the same, or do you want to do something that's going to build into it? So we went to a spread offense, something day one in 2004, we line up with 4 wide receivers. I hear gasping in the stands like they've never seen this before. 4 years later, we make a deep run into the playoffs. And I've always had the philosophy from an offensive perspective, do something different. Do something that people don't do. Everybody in the Outer Banks was either wing T, I formation, flex bone. We come out and we're throwing the ball. We're doing things different. The kids bought into it because it was fun. It was something different, something that they did not grow up watching. Same thing. I come to Estero High School in 08, and they were a flex bone, power I, wing T type team. I said, listen, guys, we need to buy in. And it takes a couple years. You have kids that it's not the kid's fault. They don't understand. It's like, this is how we've been taught to play. We're supposed to lose games. And that was a big
Mhm.
hurdle at Estero High School. I remember we're getting beat that same year by Lely 45 to nothing at halftime. And the kids are like crying in the locker room going, why is it okay for us to lose? And I go ballistic going, it's not okay to lose. You have to make a decision. What are you willing to do to help us right the ship? And everywhere I've gone, I've told principals and ADs, it's a 3 to 5 year process. You'll have great kids year one. I still remember the kids that were at Estero my first year, great kids. They just didn't know how to win. They didn't want to win because they were ingrained in, okay, it's okay. At the first Saturday in November, we'll turn our equipment in and we'll go on to wrestling and basketball. And I'm like, no, you've got to aspire to do something. Look at Naples. I mean, you guys were that split bag veer team. Nobody runs that. And it's done wonders for you. You've done a couple state titles. You played in 3. Even when you were there before you're in the 3rd and 4th round of the playoffs. That says a lot about a system. Everybody now is running the spread or the 20 personnel stuff. That's the new craze. Well, what can we do different? At Golden Gate, we're a flexbone team. We're a pistol flexbone team. And for a couple of games, we had almost 500 yards of offense with undervalued and under-talented kids who just bought in. And last year at Golden Gate, they went 1-9. We went 4-6 this year. So and we lost a ton of kids to the transfer portal in Collier County. Kids just
Yeah.
said, we don't want to be here.
Yeah.
You're not going to win. We're going to move on. So we took a bunch of kids, and between June and August, we got them to buy in. This is what we need to do. And we pull off 4 wins, which I think is an incredible job for Coach Bajika and myself and everybody that's on that staff. So it's buy-in, getting the kids to buy in. And then it starts up front, getting those big boys up front to work.
I agree with that. I mean, you guys have definitely out there Golden Gate have had a draw on kids that live in your zone going to different schools and private schools and other public schools. So you guys have been fighting an uphill battle for sure.
Yes,
But you
sir.
say that the difference part of it, I think back to when you went to Bonita and you kind of throwing some single wing at people,
Well, we
direct
did.
snap to the running back and a little spinner series and that kind of stuff. So that's
I am
fun
a
to watch for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a big believer that at the high school level, you have to match your talent to your system. At the college level, you're out recruiting your 4 and 5 stars. So if you're Lincoln Riley running the spread, or you're at Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech, you're going to find those running backs. But we had to. In my first 4 years at Bonita Springs, we had a kid that could throw the ball. We had a bunch of quick little receivers, so we did some stuff. Well, when that first class left, we had nothing. No quarterback, no anything. And when I was at Immokalee, I went up to Apopka High School and I visited Rick Darlington and I said, I want to learn your single wing. I want to use it as a package. I want my younger kids to run it. Because, most head coaches, they want their freshmen and JV teams to run exactly what their varsity is. And I think running the spread and the zone read it's a tough thing to do at those lower levels. So with the single wing, it's still a shotgun snap. You're still running zone principles and gap principles and things like that. So I sat with Rick for a weekend and he taught me his entire offense, just the basics of it, and brought it to Immokalee High School. And my second year at Immokalee, I think it was 2014, our JVs ran it, went undefeated, and our freshmen went 6-2. So there was a lot of success with that. I had a small stint at Golden Gate before Bonita Springs, and Mike DeGrigley was the head coach. And in my first year there, the varsities run the spread. We go down to watch Lely, our freshman play Lely, and the freshmen win 7-0, but it's the most god-awful, ugly football game you've ever seen. So on the ride back to Golden Gate, I said to Mike, listen, I know you want to keep things the same. If you let me talk to the freshman coaches, we can put in a single wing shotgun snap. It's still what we need to do. We've got the kids down at that level to run it. It's very simple. It's 3 plays. Mike was all for it because he had saw like we're going to struggle for it. Well, the next day they go out and they run 1 play. They ran power, and that's all they ran, right and left. They scored 45 points in a freshman game. That freshman team went undefeated. And it was like all of a sudden, what are they doing? Well, it's a direct snap. When you play football with a quarterback, and it's 10 on 11. You got 10 defensive players playing against, basically, or 11 defensive players playing basically against 10 offensive players because the quarterback doesn't do much. He can boot and do things to kind of occupy somebody. But with the single wing, it's 11 on 11. And it's more hats at the point of attack than you have defenders. So after I lost my quarterback going into 2021, we went right to the single wing, and we had a ton of success. We moved the ball up and down. I think in 2021, we went 4-6, but we lost to Estero by a point. We lost to Island Coast by 2 points. We lost to East Lee by a touchdown. after being down by 21 at halftime. I mean, just little things. It's that what if game. Like it could have been a great season. And then in 2022, we had a young man at Bonita Springs named Josiah Sessler, who's now at Baldwin Wallace. And he was on pace to break Derrick Henry's carries record because he was carrying the ball 30 times a game. I mean, he was on pace to do a lot of good things. I know the news press and Wink and they all were doing articles on him. And then Hurricane Ian came and that kind of squashed that. But I love it. I've always been a spread guy, but you get to blocking angles and more blockers at the point of attack. It's, I don't know why more people don't do it, but I'm starting to see it at other schools. I know you see it at the college level, certain things. Even Clemson has a single wing package for their goal line stuff. Direct snap. I mean, why not put the ball in your best player's hands?
Andy Reid's used
He
some
did
of
it
it with the Kansas
with the
City Chiefs,
Chiefs.
and even
Absolutely.
not necessarily lining up in it, but running the concept in the
Yes,
backfield
sir.
of all that kind of stuff, which is interesting. It can be confusing, and it puts you in a bind, particularly when you get all those guys at the point of attack. So,
Yes,
all right.
sir.
So as you get into these situations, are you focusing on you're getting into these rebuild areas? Are you focusing on getting guys out that are big, the biggest dudes in the school? Or are you taking what's there, and what's the formula you're using up front to develop these guys that are going to be able to build the foundation of going from 0-10 and being terrible to making the playoffs and being a district champion here in Florida? What's that approach for you? How are you doing that?
Well, when I first got to Estero High School, I would be in the lunch. We had multiple lunches, and the principal gave me planning during that period. I was in talking to every kid. And you do, as a football coach, you look for those bigger bodied kids. But I'd also take a kid that's got a lot of heart. It gives great effort. We had some undersized linemen at Estero my first couple of years, but those kids did everything. And I think the formula is winning. You go from Estero, I think they were 1-19 when I took over the program. We didn't win a game in 2008 because we had to rebuild. And then all of a sudden
Hmm.
we start winning. Kids are knocking on your door, your office. Hey, when's spring football? Hey, I want to play football. And then those kids come out. Going back to Golden Gate this season, after our spring game, we lost 15 kids to going to private schools, and some went to other public schools in the area. And we got a bunch of kids out that were undersized, but they were willing to work. Die on this hill that I can take a bunch of 5'9" offensive linemen that are coachable and give great effort and have great hips, and we can be successful. Because we were this year, like I said, both of my tackles are 5'9", but they are willing to do whatever they can to down block, and they run their feet, they work proper angles, their footwork is great, their hand placement. And when you start winning, then those other kids start to come out. So I
So talk to me. What are you doing? What's the first thing that you're developing in those offensive linemen? You get these guys out, you get them on the field. Where do you start with them?
We start with the feet. I will live and die on the hill that footwork is the key to being a great offensive lineman. When we ran the zone, I taught 3 steps. The zone step was a 46-inch step on a 45-degree angle. I taught a gap step, which is 6 inches laterally into the gap, and I taught the bucket step or the drop step. Everything was 6 inches. And I know you know this, but the most important step for an offensive lineman is that second step. How fast can I get that second step in the ground so I have balance? So I have everything in my frame to do my job. So if you can start with footwork, and I've always been a big proponent, put kids in a 2-point stance, you just whoop the footwork. With a veer team like we are now, it's 6-inch angle steps, understanding the angles that we have to block for us to be successful. I sat down with Nick Pajika, our head coach, and he said, what do you think about this? I said, this is great because you have undersized guys blocking angles. We don't have to worry about a gap or a zone, so to speak, if we're running stretch or inside midline or mid zone or any of that stuff. It's angles. And that in my opinion, gives the offensive line the advantage. So it's all about footwork first. Then we talk hand placement and eye placement, pad level. And you and I both know it starts in the weight room. One of the
Yeah.
things that these kids that say, hey, what do you bench press? I don't care what you bench press. What do you power clean? What do you squat? Where's your lower?
Hmm.
How are your hips? Do you have tight hips or your hips? Can you bend? Can you do what I need you to do? And the kids buy into that because you don't care what I bench? No, I don't. But if you're a 400 or 500-pound squatter and you're power cleaning over 225, you're going to be explosive. And I can work with that. After the feet, you work with body positioning. Where are your hands going to be? Where do you want your hands? I think one of the most undervalued thing is eye contact. If you get down and you're the tackle and now you have you have an inside shade, I know I've got to get my head across you. If your eye placement isn't where it needs to be, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, that's a very valuable tool for the young kids to learn is the leverage point. I always harped on where your helmet's going to be, the leverage point. It always
Absolutely.
keeping that between the ball carrier and the defender. And of course, I'm a big fan of the veer and all those angles that you get and you're trying to get and establish. And we always argued with our guys, not argue is probably not the right term, but demanded that you get your feet where your hand is. And if we can get our feet
Yes,
where our
sir.
hand is, we're going to have a successful play there.
Absolutely.
So, so you got these guys out there. What do you do in your steps? Are you doing like a one step, like on a grid type of thing? Are you on
Yeah, we do.
boards? How are you?
Everything we do when we work with the kids, I work with whistles. So one whistle with one
Okay.
set, reset, one step, reset, and then we go to two steps. And I'm
Hmm.
constantly out there going boom, boom. I want to hear 2 feet right away. And then we work the
Hmm.
power angles, your ankles, knees, hips, everything working low, duck, walking. We do a lot of board drill. We'll set the boards up on angles. We'll set them straight. We'll set them where they've got to drop step and get to them. You're working that footwork. To me, I think it's very underrated. People talk about, well, does he have get off? Can he come off the ball? That's great. But if his footwork stinks and he's overextended as an offensive lineman, he's going to be on his butt. Or if his base is too close together, you have no power that way. So I like working that with the kids.
Yeah, there's a nice blend in between having a wide base, but not too wide. And the narrow base,
Correct.
the wider the base, the more powerful. The narrower the base, the more speed or quicker you're going to be. So
Yes,
finding
sir.
that happy medium in the meantime is hard to do, but you got to do it with those young guys so that once they figure it out, it's locked in. It's funny. It just reminds me, I went to a clinic one time and the coach, I said, sit me down like I'm a freshman. I just arrived on campus. Teach me how you would teach your freshman guy that just showed up. And he put him in a fit. And I was like, you teach your guys? He goes, yeah, I work from the fit and work backwards. And I said, coach, how do you do that? Because if they're not in a good stance, if they don't have good toe angles, they're never going to make it to the fit. And it blew my mind. And he was at this was at a prominent school, and he was a reputable offensive line coach. It was working, but it blew my mind. I was like, how do you build a house from the roof down? It doesn't.
Can't do it.
I don't see how you do that. But I agree with you 100% about the toe angles because if you're off by just a little bit at the start, you go 5, 6 yards down the field, you're in the wrong spot. You'll never have any help you'll never help us on the second level. You got to make and you're probably going to get split on the first level if you're working with a wingman one way or the other.
Agreed 100%.
What what's your next step? And you got to so look kind of go through like an individual practice. You're going to start with the steps. You're going to work steps. I'm assuming that's mostly off season and preseason stuff. Once
Yeah.
you get into the
We'll
season,
do
you
it in
kind
the
of
off
reduce
season,
the
but
amount of time there.
we'll spend the first 5 minutes of my individual period is the kids like you can see they're frustrated or they're bored. Oh, we got to go work the boards. It's all we start from the ground up, and it's 2 point stances. We're working our steps. We're duck walking through it. Then we'll put a kid in front of them with a hand shield. Now we'll work our fit so they understand. Like you said, if I can get my feet where my hands are, we're going to be successful. And we work those angles. And then it's like, okay, what happens if you get an inside shade and an outside shade? We go from there, and then we'll work to where we're putting our hand in the ground because like you said, you can't build a house from the roof. We start with our feet. And I will, like I said, I'll die on the hill that that's the most important thing for an offensive lineman. And then we'll go to the shoots after that. Now we're coming off. We're working that explosive, that hip stuff. And once again, we try to work against guys with bags because I love the sled, but it's unrealistic. The sled's not going to move. If you're working a zone concept and the sled's not going to cross your face like a kid with a bag will. So then you get to understand the game. I think you said it earlier. One of the most important things I look for in an offensive lineman is intelligence. Being able to see, hey, I've got an outside shade. I've got to hook block him or we're outside zoning it. If he's outside, it's going to be a bear for me to get across there. We got to play smart. I'm going to take that drop step. I'm going to lose ground to gain ground. So going against guys holding hand shields and having them slant or move, it develops that expect the unexpected. When you're coaching the defensive line, you're looking at get off and you want to get up the field or you want to do whatever. From an offensive line standpoint, I've got to be smart. I've got to know if they start head up and then he moves inside before the snap of ball, I may have to change my steps. So we work all that stuff, all the variables. I want it to be so difficult on the kids during practice that when they get in the game, they come off the sideline going, Coach, they're in a 4 technique. I'm great all game long. He's not moving.
Yeah,
So if I can put them in a
absolutely.
position like, hey, we watched film on so-and-so and they're a 4-man front. Well, you're going to get a couple plays during team with a 3-man front. Adapt. Because when you know how high school coaches are, when you start from an offensive perspective, you start moving the ball on a team, that defensive coordinator is going to, we need to do something else. I told our coaches this year with us running the veer, I don't care what we're playing against. Show me a bear front. Show me this. Show me a 6-1 front. Show me a 4-4
Mhm.
front. Show me 4-3. So my guys have to adapt. Maybe every other play is what we're going to see, but every third, and fifth, and seventh play, show me a 3-3 stack, something that this team has never done, because we have to be able to adapt to it. And the more we do
That's so
that,
true,
the
coach.
easier it is on Friday nights.
That's so true. I mean, running the Veer for 20 plus years, I can't tell you how many times I spent 20 plus hours breaking down film, watching film, scouting film, doing defensive schemes based on film, knowing tendencies. And I show up and I look down at the other field in pregame, and they got 5 defense linemen instead of 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it is they're doing there. Or they have 3 instead of, or they got 8 instead of 2. And I'm like, gosh dang it. Everything we worked on all week long
Right.
down the tube. So it's worthless. And now we're adjusting on the fly, and that's a big deal. You know, you get a young kid playing his first game, or an inexperienced kid playing, and now everything that you worked on all week, the angles, where your eyes go, changes in a flash. And sometimes it takes a series or two to let them get the new feel of where they got to go, what they got to look at. And so I was always throwing stuff at people in practice
You
as
have
well,
to.
and then the best thing was like week 3. I hated the first kickoff classic, first game of the year, spring game. Oh, I hated those things. I would just as soon forfeit and not play, and allow us to get a little bit of film on people so I could see what they had all together. Right.
Sure.
And because, good Lord, man, that used to frustrate me. We get there, and then, week 4 or 5, now you've seen different things. And you're like, all right, remember week 1? That's what we're doing. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So hopefully that intelligence pulls up there and they can rely on that. After you get those steps down, are you coaching a tripod, hands, face, tripod on the
Yeah, we
shield?
do all that.
What's the
Once again,
concept?
it's after feet, now it's hands. Where do your hands go? It goes back to if my feet can get to where my hands are, or vice versa, I'm going to be good. Getting fit inside, getting the guys to understand we can't be out here. Everything needs to be inside. And when you're blocking angles, it's kind of easier that way, in my opinion, because if you're a tackle blocking down on a 3 technique, I know I'm going to put my helmet either into his shoulder or across his face, and my hands are going to be here. And we work the why. This is a generation that frustrates me, Coach, because they're like, Coach, why do we have to do this? When I was in high school, if I was told to do something, I just did it. And the why would come to me later on, like, okay, I understand why. Now I have to explain it. The flip side to that is, by explaining it to these young kids, it clicks with them like, okay, I understand. So where's my hand placement next? And then it's all about effort. I tell my kids, I refuse to coach effort. If I have to coach effort, we're in trouble. So if our individual period is 10, 15 minutes, I expect you to give me everything you got for 10, 15 minutes, because that's where games are won and lost. When we work the little things, footwork, hand placement, body angles, getting our head, where should our head be on this? So we do a lot of double teams with our offense. So we have a period, we do a group period after individual with our defensive line, and we work against the live body. Because you know how it is in practice at the high school level. You put that second string offensive tackle in there, or a third string guy, or a Freddy, he's not going to give you effort on a double team. But you put your starting defensive tackle, nose guard, defensive end, he's going to fight because his coach is yelling at him like I'm yelling at my kids. So it's what I love about the O&D line is the physicality of the game. You know how it is. If you're not physical, and that's what we stress that with our kids at Golden Gate, and when I was at Bonita Springs running the single wing, we have to be the most physical team. And you don't get that hitting a sled. It's all body to body work. I mean, there's pros and cons to the sled, and it serves a purpose. But after we work fit and we've got everything and work hip drive, now I want to go against a live body, because you put even a second string defensive lineman in there against you, and he's fighting for a starting spot, and you tell him slant either way, he's going to slant as hard as he can, and that
Yeah.
only makes us better.
And he wants to be able to brag to his buddy, I whooped your tail
Absolutely, he is.
yesterday in
Absolutely, he does.
practice. I know the sled work for me was, you bring up a good point. It's not realistic in the movement aspect.
No,
My whole thing with the sled is I wanted to see my guys accelerate their feet through contact. I think that was the one big benefit the sled brought, was that
sure.
when you hit that resistance, the first resistance you feel, to push through that thing and accelerate, because you see, particularly young guys, they'll hit something and their feet settle. And
All the time.
that would drive me nuts. I was just trying to make sure that no settling, just I want to see contact and the feet running through contact. And that was the whole thing. Once we got to that point and I could see that we were blowing through those points where you'd want to settle your feet, I was totally fine with, if we didn't do a lot of sled work, great. But I wanted to make sure that was that was going to happen. We were going to run through contact regardless of what was going to happen. We might be getting our teeth kicked in. Northwestern, you come out with the biggest defensive lineman I've ever seen in my life, and they just start kicking our teeth in. But hey, we're going to try. We're going to run our feet through
Our
them at
feet.
least, and
Absolutely.
kind of bounce off of them. He looked like some monster on top. What's the
King Kong.
gargantuan guy?
Yep.
So, all right, coach, what's the one drill? What's your favorite drill? Like, you got weather coming in, lightning, wet ball. I mean, we could go an hour just talking about wet ball practices,
Right.
probably. But you got weather, something coming in. You got 10 minutes. What are you putting your kids in? What are you doing to make sure they get it done? This is the one thing you got to get done every day.
We got to get down. We block angles. I call it the point drill, where we get our 5 guys up and we'll put bodies out there. We're running veer right. Point to who you have. What
Mm.
steps are you going to take? I want them to verbally tell me what they're going to do. It's a non-contact drill, but it's so beneficial that our kids can see. And then we'll go veer right, and then I'll move the defense around quickly. I'll tell kids behind them, you go here, you go there. Now we're running the same play. What do you do? I want my kids to think. I want them to say, Coach, it's a double team now. We're making an ace call, which is a double team between a center and the guard. Or now we're making a deuce call, guard and tackle. Good. And why are you doing that? Coach, he went from a shade to a 3 technique on the guard. I have to come down. The more our kids, like I said, the intelligence part of the game up front from an offensive perspective. I don't care what anybody says. Our
Articulating.
smartest guys are up front. They have to think on their feet. So if I've got 10 minutes, here comes a storm. We know we're going to get lightninged out. Or nowadays it's so friggin' hot. We're in the black on the wet ball. We have to go inside, but we're going to be outside. Line up. Show me who you got. Tell me why you're blocking this. And the more they talk about it, you see the light bulb go on. It's
Do
like,
you do
okay,
your
I
steps?
understand.
Do you do your steps against that as well?
Yeah,
Like,
we
take
do.
your first step
Oh, yeah.
and
It's a 2 whistle drill. Point, tell me who you got. Second whistle, show me your first step, show me your second step. Perfect. And I correct right then and there. Hey, that was a 12-inch step. You're off bounds. There's no double team
Mhm.
going to happen. Show me your second step. And then we do it. We'll keep the front up there. Then we'll do it. The second whistle is 2 steps. Get there. Perfect. Now run through your blocks. Next group up or next play. Now we're going veer left. What do we got? Point to it. 1 whistle, first step, second step, reset, 2 steps, reset, and walk through it. We run 3 base plays, 3 or 4 veer option, midline option. We run a little sweep and sprint option stuff. That's it. And then anything that comes off that. So we can get that in 10 minutes. Okay, good. This is their base front. And then, it'll translate into once we go to team, if we're, or inside run, where I tell the defensive coach running it, throw as many fronts at me as you can.
Right. Coach, I've had some years where my guys come up and literally do that on the line of scrimmage during the game.
Yeah.
They would come up and they would point to their guy and then point and tap the guy on the side and point to who he was supposed to block. And at one point, I'm like, hey, guys, they're going to pick up on the fact that you're pointing to the guy that you're coming to block. We come up with some other method of communicating. I'm like, no, coach, we like it this way better. I said, all right, man, you
Doing it.
better get the job done. And most of the time they did get the job done.
Sure.
I'm not going to argue with results if
No,
that's
you
what
can't.
you say.
Well,
And that's
I'll go back to what
good.
you talked to earlier. My second year in Immokalee, we were a 3-3 stack team. Going into the Naples game, we switched to a 4-man front. And when you guys came out for the first time, I watched your offensive line. They looked like deer in the headlights, but then they started pointing. Yeah, y'all beat us, I think, 24-14 that year. I just remember, I kept thinking, those kids are coached well. Because at first, the center got down and was expecting a nose guard. Well, he had a 1 and a 3. He didn't know what to do. And they settled back, and they started pointing, and you started moving the ball. And I'm like, all right, that's just good coaching on your part.
Was that your second year at Immokalee or your
Second
first
year in
year?
Immokalee, yes, sir.
Because your first year you beat us, didn't you? I think
We
you beat
did,
us your
we
first
did.
year.
And you guys we beat you, but you guys had like almost 400 yards rushing that game.
I think we turned the ball over inside the 20 like 3 or 4 times or something, like, if I remember
Turnovers were
correctly.
that's what killed you.
That was with Javaris, right? Wasn't Javaris? I think was he on that team?
No,
Who was
Dearness
your running?
Johnson.
Dearness, that's right.
Dearness was our running back my first year. And
And
we had
was he
Casey
hurt that
Jackson
game?
and Dearness.
Was he hurt that game?
No, he was not. He
No, he
played
played
that
against
game.
us. That's yeah, okay, I remember that game now. One of the games, I think it was Javaris James was I'll never forget this. This was a funny thing. The Immokalee Naples rivalry, it was a good one for years and years and years. And Javaris came out on the during the game, and the year before we had fumbled the ball a couple times, or the week before we'd fumbled the ball a couple times, and he was hurt. He wasn't playing. He'd hurt his knee or something, had missed that game. And I remember him during game walking out for the coin toss and carrying the football, and then he dropped it and then looked at our sidelines and started rubbing his eyes like he was crying. That was one of the best chirps I've ever seen in my life was him doing that to us. But yeah, definitely, I do remember that game, and JC kind of took over
He
and
did that game. He did.
single handedly beat us. All right, so what's a drill you got going that you think you kind of have the cheat code on that you're doing that you think is most beneficial that a lot of coaches are overlooking? They're not spending the time to do it, or they don't see the value in it, but you really do, and that's something that you're gonna make sure that you get done. So something that's not most guys don't see the value in it, but you really do, and you think that that's a cheat code to
I'm gonna
work
go
on.
back. I'm gonna go back to footwork. Whether it's week 1 or week 11, we're on our boards and we're doing footwork. I think a lot of coaches, I've been like I said, this is my 30th year coaching. I've seen and talked to other offensive line coaches. By week 7 or 8, they're just going to team. They're just, they're
Mhm.
assuming their kids are going to remember, or our footwork's been good for the first 5 weeks. We don't have to pay attention to it. Like I said earlier, I'm going to die on the hill that we are going to do our footwork every single day. And it's benefited the teams that I've been at, like at Estero up at Currituck County, when you don't have the best talent, but you have kids that are willing to work and they're going to willing to run through a wall, but they don't forget their steps. We went out my last year at Estero, we pulled a lot. We did a lot of trapping. We did a lot of counter tray stuff. So what our footwork was, and we didn't skip pull. It was the old fashioned, we're pulling and kicking. So every day we're working our steps. I believe in it. I did it when I was in college. It was footwork every day. And then after that, it comes down to heart. Are you gonna kick that guy's butt? And if he kicks your butt, are you willing to get up and it's gonna be a 90-minute battle, or in high school,
Yeah,
48-minute battle. But you
yeah,
start from the ground up. I'm gonna work footwork every single day, and we're gonna be perfect on it. We may get our butts kicked by somebody, but we're every day, no matter whether we're playing Naples or somebody else, our steps, when I'm watching the end zone copy, I want to see your steps there, and I correct them. I'll show them. I'll send them clips from huddle. Look at your first step. That's not what we're teaching. What did you do? Well, he moved from this to that, coach. Doesn't matter. Take your steps.
yeah.
So that's
You know
that's
what you're
my
supposed
cheat
to
code.
do.
Once we had taught you had said earlier, you might start in a wide base, but then you've got to get comfortable as you're fitting and doing things. Sometimes I'll tell kids, look at your base, it's too skinny. Look at play 67. You took a great first step, but your second step brought you, and that's why you got knocked on your butt. Or you were too wide and you
Mhm.
couldn't move your feet. So, I think footwork and second be hand placement. Where are my hands going to go? Where's my head going to go? Like you said earlier, get my head between the ball carrier and the defender, and I think we win.
Yeah. I think if you could just do that and fall down and make them jump over you, you were probably
Absolutely.
okay.
Yes, sir.
That was minimum. Just get there and fall down, and maybe they'll trip over you. At least we got a fighting chance there. So I'm assuming you're doing technique work each day. Our typical Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday work week, and maybe a little bit on Thursday, polishing type stuff on Thursday. So you're doing technique work every day before you get into your scheme specific
Right.
stuff. I'm assuming that's how you kind of structure your stuff, and it's kind of more technique and introduction, brain kind of work on Monday, and then physical work and getting into the scheme work where you're working with the guy next to you and recognizing blitzes and where to go with the angles and that kind of stuff on Tuesday, Wednesday. Where are you incorporating the pass game into this? How are you incorporating that in? Is that a technique part two also in
Is
there that you have each day?
Well, with what we're doing with the flex bone veer at Golden Gate, our major pass plays are our play action. So
Mhm.
what we teach is we teach that we're going to come off the ball as if we're running it, and we're going to settle in, and then we're going to sink our hips. So that way the footwork works with it. Now, when you're a veer team like we are, we don't get a lot of blitzes because teams don't want you get caught in a blitz against us. You might catch us, but it's going to
Cash.
be a plus 20 play or whatever. So we get a lot of base fronts. We don't get a lot of blitzing. We get blitzing when we're in 3rd and 12 or whatever, and they know we're gonna have to throw the ball or whatever it may be. But our play action passing is the key to the success of this offense. And once again, we're taking our steps, we're fitting it, and then we're sitting. Because most defensive linemen, when they feel that run block, they're going to sit, they're going to try to extend and find. Well, we're already there. By that time, it's too late for them to pass rush. So, and many times this year when we were in 3rd and long, we would just run veer dive. We tell the quarterback, just give it to the fullback. Let's just survive. Let's not turn the ball over. Let's punt the ball, live to see the next series. So play action's big. And most of even our drop back passing, we show as if we were running the football. I don't teach the traditional hands up, sitting back in the chair. We're gonna kick slide. We don't do that because everything that we do now we do roll out pass. So we'll reach on the front side and we'll hinge on the back, and we do rep that. One of the good things this year at Golden Gate was we had a senior who played left guard for us who started last year, and he was the catalyst to the offensive line. He made most of our calls, and he understood why we did things. So having him up front to make those calls for the kids, because we were young up front, we started 2 sophomores, 2 juniors, and a senior. Having him make our base calls with our pass stuff, we were good. And everything for us was a hard call. That hard just means we're coming off hard and we're sitting. And by that point, it was either quick game or play action, and the ball's out in 3
Balls
seconds
out.
anyway,
Yeah.
so I don't have to worry about 7 or 5-step drop stuff.
Yeah, I got to the point where, I don't know, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years after we'd been here at Naples, I stopped calling it play pass and I called it run pass.
There it is.
And that's all I wanted to do that. Now we've had components of drop back passing, and I would work that in. I know at one point it's funny, I was watching a guy doing an O-line academy drill just 2 days ago, and he had a bag and it was attached to a rope and it was just swinging down off like a bar. And it reminded me, I was like, I actually did that years ago. I took our blocking dummies and I tied it up to our goalpost, and I have play pass period or pass pro period where I would just have the guys, no, I might, I don't know, maybe it's 4 or 5 dummies hanging from the goalpost. And I would just have one guy and he would swing the dummy and they'd have to pop up and punch or pop up and punch. And I swear we got, I don't know, we'd get in 7 minutes, we could get 15, 20 pass sets with punching and timing and getting all that kind of stuff done. So it was just little things like that I was trying to incorporate in there that we didn't, if we threw the ball 12 times a game, that'd be a lot, right? And if 6 or 7 of those were drop back passes, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time in practice doing that kind of stuff, but we did need a little bit of
Yes,
work on
sir.
this. So it was little things like that they're doing punt team. Okay, you guys get over there on the bags. Let's go. Here we go. We're
Perfect.
throwing dummies at you. Jump up and pop up and punch so you don't get hit in the face. If they miss, we all got to enjoy that. That was a fun time. All right, so let's go to the other side of the coin there. What's something that you are a drill that just isn't worth the squeeze for you? You're like, I don't understand why people do that. It's just doesn't make sense to me.
Going back, I got to go back to the sled, like we talked about.
Okay.
I understand the purpose of it. Running your feet, I couldn't agree more. Nothing's more frustrating than watching your freshman come out and take one step, stop, and go, Coach, why did he fall down? Well, you got to run your feet. There's a purpose of it. I do like getting on a sled and put them in a 6-point stance and work the extension and then work the fire out and work them running their feet. But there are a lot of coaches that go out there and they're driving the sled up and down the field with their guys, and I'm like, I don't get it.
Hmm.
You're not teaching them what they need to know. You're not teaching that defensive lineman is not just going to stand there and get blocked. He's going to move. So how are you going to overtake that? Things like that. I mean, there's pros and cons to the sled like we talked about, but I'm not a big believer in getting out. We're just going to drive the sled for 15 minutes. There's a waste of 15 minutes. I could be doing something else.
Absolutely. What's your favorite scheme? It's 1st and 10. What's your favorite play to call?
Well, coming out, I like running veer. At Golden Gate what we're doing right now. We're going to come out and we're going to run whatever our based option is going to be for the week. If we think we can be successful with veer, we're going to run veer because we want to see with our
Hmm.
motions and things like that, how is the secondary reacting? Are they shifting with the motion? Are the linebackers flowing with it too? I love coming out because that helps with the play calling. Okay, this is what they're doing. This is how we can catch them later on in the game. So come out with our base play every time. I mean, it's going to be either veer or midline to start the game to see how the defense is reacting. And also seeing, are my guys up front doing what they should be doing? Did we practice against a 4-2 defense and now they're in a 3-4? Okay, can you handle the change from snap one? So we're going to run our base play. You think as an offensive coordinator, maybe you can catch somebody and run a play action pass or run some sort of reverse. We're not. We're going to come right out at you, run our base play to see how you react, and then go from there.
Yeah, I kind of always had maybe a 6 to 10 play series in my brain that I was always trying to expose as much as I could in those first 6 to 10 plays, be it through formation, be it through a motion or a shift, that I was going to get a snapshot of just about everything that you had in your bag in those first 6, 8, 10 plays. And
Absolutely.
Hopefully you had a 6 or 8 play drive. You after the first series, you know
Sure.
everything you wanted to know. I always talked about, like, it's a puzzle. Like, people are like, "Well, how do you guys are so good at second half adjustments." Well, yeah, we were, but it was mainly because we would listen to the guys on the field, and they all had, "Coach, we can't do this that way. That guy's here." "Okay, well, let's try it this way." So by the time we got to halftime, we were just listening to the dudes telling us what we had, and then just doing more of that and less of what it wasn't rocket
Sure.
science. It was being in tune with what they were saying. But I agree with that, especially with the veer. You want to be able to figure out where you can get that easy read, and where you can get that guy lined up that gives you the best angles on all your guys, and work that out.
Like
So
you said,
go
I'm
ahead.
gonna script 10 plays, and I'm gonna put all of our formations in there, see how they line up,
Hmm.
and we're gonna run our veer out of it. What are you doing? So then it's easy to make those adjustments.
I mean, I factored it one time. I think we could run veer something like 36 different ways or something like that, out of
Sure.
different combinations and shifts and motions and everything, and that puts you guys on the other side of the ball. It put not you, but the other guys on the other side of the ball, puts them in a bind, because if we can run the same play, it doesn't change anything for anybody up front. The only thing that's changing is where the secondary guy is, or having to look and have eyes, and know where to bump, or shot, slide, or shift, or whatever. That was something that I enjoyed doing as an offensive coordinator, is kind of messing with the defensive coordinator and saying, "Hey, look over here," and then we're going to kick him in the nuts on the other side. That's what's it's always fun to
Absolutely.
do. All right, coach, as we kind of get down towards the end of this here, I know that you being an offensive lineman in college, you probably have experienced, and particularly being at a couple different schools there, and being a college offensive line coach, tight ends coach there at Iona. The offensive line guy's a character. His mindset is not like an average person. They're gonna find something. There's gonna be a weird dude up there that his doesn't wash his shirt for the last 3 days of the week so he can wear it during the game, so that he's smelly during the game, or I don't know. He always puts his chewing gum on the inside of his locker, and he has a gum collection or whatever. What are any characters you've had over the course of your career, your coaching career and your playing career, that stick out in your mind, and a funny story or two that you might be in your brain that you could share with us that illustrates the character of the offensive line?
You know, I think being an offensive lineman, it's a unique position, and you do get a lot of unique characters. You get guys that will, like you said, I had one kid at Bonita Springs that refused to wash his stuff, his girdle through he washed it on Sunday, and by Friday he stunk. He didn't want nobody wanted to be in the locker room with him, but that was his shtick. We had other guys going back to the gum thing. They would, we would have the team meal, but one offensive lineman, his mom brought him Arby's. He goes, "Coach, I'm not playing if I don't eat Arby's. Sounds good to me. I don't care. You ate our team meal." He'd be in there eating a double roast, just little things like that. I also think it's, the O line, it's a brotherhood. There's not another position to have five guys that got to work together. And you got to rely on the next person. You've got to rely, I may be the left tackle, but I know that the guard and center are going to do their job on this play. And I'm going to be there for them when they need me. Communication is a big thing. And I've had stories where our big offensive tackle at Bonita Springs, he would make calls, and nobody knew what they meant. But hey, this week we're calling trap Taco Bell. And we'd be
Mhm.
on the sideline, be yelling taco, taco. We're like, what call is that? And he wouldn't make that call. He wouldn't tell anybody until Friday. But that was their shtick. They loved it. Drove my offensive
Yeah,
line coach crazy. Like, what are we going? Titties. We're going titties this week for trap.
there we
And
go.
all of a sudden it's like, that's great though, because they have that own little bond. Like I said, you can't win without the guys up front, both sides of the ball. But as an offensive lineman and an offensive line coach, I'm going to die on the hill that those are the most important five guys on your team. If you get bigger guys, if you get the guys that can get
Absolutely.
the job done, you could have marginal guys behind them that can be successful. And you could have marginal guys up front, but if they play together and they're smart and they're vicious, that relentless effort, they're going to block through the whistle. You're going to be successful.
I always thought that if I could call one cell phone and talk to all 5 offensive linemen, we were gonna have a good year. And the years I had to
Absolutely.
call 5 or 6 different cell phones to talk to one person or different people was gonna be a little bit more difficult. And specifically those state championship years, for sure, one cell phone on a Saturday night, Sunday morning, whatever, anytime, any Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening after practice, I could call one cell phone and probably talk to 4 or 5 guys at one time. That was always a good sign for me. And And of course, like I've said before, when the backup right guard has a girlfriend, you're having a good year. And so that's when you see him walking through the hallways with a girlfriend next to him, and you're
That's
like,
it.
"What? He's got a girlfriend?" And they're like, "Yeah, coach, we don't understand it. Neither do I." But you're having a good season. One thing always stuck out in my mind is as a freshman in college, we'd have the upper class guys they were really funny. And I was able to go to school with a bunch of really funny dudes, and they would always walk around, and there was always this one line that they'd say, and they'd be like, "Hey, you got a banana in your ear." And they'd be like, "What? I can't hear you. You got a banana in your ear. What? You got a banana in your ear." Whatever, because there's always bananas laying around, right? He's like, "I can't hear you. I got a banana in my ear." And they would just yell that all the time. And I never understood it, but it always was. Now then, when I got to be an upperclassman, there's banana be in my ear. Hey, what? I can't hear you. There's banana in my ears. They're not right in the head, that's for sure. So, coach, I got to commend you, man. You've had some just down here in Southwest Florida, man. You've taken on some uphill battles, and you've done a very good job of having success come out of those endeavors that you've engaged in, and it's been very impressive to me from afar. And I've had an opportunity to talk to you a couple times before and after games, and I really respect your ability to take a difficult task and stick to it to the end too. Like not just bail if it gets too hard. You went through some really, really tough orders there. And it's been impressive what you've done with those schools, starting off schools and
Appreciate that.
rebuilding schools. And I got a lot of respect for you in that regard. And I think a bunch of you, and I'm very thankful and grateful for you taking time out of your schedule
Well, I
and
appreciate you
stopping
having me.
by today to talk with us. It's been fun, and I look forward to. It's hard for me being from Naples to root for Golden Gate to do well,
Right.
but I do root for you guys to. I hope you win all 9 of your 10 games next year
Yep. I hear you.
and get those guys back into the playoffs and formidable East Collier County opponent for the rest of the county. I look forward to seeing you guys working out there.
Appreciate that.
All right, coach, as we sign off here, remember if you master the trench, you'll win the war. And we'll see you guys on our next episode. Thank you very much. Hope you're enjoying Trenchometry. Assuming that you are, please hit that like button and subscribe. Remember, master the trench, you win the war.